You are listening to Let's Talk Trio on podcasts. Keep up with the latest episodes by downloading the Podbean app or stream episodes via our social media accounts. Search for Let's Talk Trio on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. This podcast episode is brought to you by Longsdale Publishing. Is your program seeking ways to assess your students' college readiness? Does your program need a tool to document the effectiveness of your program? Longsdale Publishing is excited to offer the Strategic Learning Assessment, a 20-minute online assessment that provides recommendations and strategies to improve academic performance across 11 learning areas: communication, critical thinking, effective learning strategies, focus and concentration, growth mindset, persistence, seeking help, sense of belonging, stress management, test preparation, and time management. For as little as $3 per student, the Strategic Learning Assessment identifies strengths and areas for growth, along with tailored recommendations for each learning area. Want a complimentary sample account for yourself and 5 students? Contact Longsdale Publishing at 727-389-8026. Again, that number is 727-389-8026. Or visit our website for more information at www.longsdale.com. That website again is www.longsdale.com. Longsdale Publishing, your partner in student success. This episode is sponsored by Student Access. Student Access, the leader in Trio software. Student Access is an online database solution that allows Trio programs to track their students' information, connect with students by text messages, streamline the APR, and work from anywhere, all online, with automatic updates for changes from the Department of Education. Their technical support team includes former Trio staff and has over 50 years of combined experience working with Trio. Make it easier to focus on your priority, the students. For more information and to request a free demo, visit their website at www.studentaccess.com or call them toll-free at 1-800-801-1232. That website again is www.studentaccess.com or 1-800-801-1232. Be sure to share your favorite episodes on your social media by tapping that share button. This is a great way to support the podcast. Now here's your host, Juan Rivas.
Thank you, Amelia, for that wonderful introduction. Hello, listener, and welcome to this episode of Let's Talk Trio. This is Season 7, Episode 23. I am your host, Juan Rivas. Before we begin, some community announcements. As you may know, Trio is under attack. The current administration argues that Trio programs are unnecessary, claiming that college access for low-income first-generation students is no longer hindered by economic and systemic barriers. We all know that is false, and that Trio services still provide sorely needed opportunities to hundreds of thousands of students nationwide. Action is required in order to protect these vital services. Please contact your members of Congress to let them know that you support Trio, and follow @ProtectTrioNow on Instagram to stay up to date with the latest updates and information. The link to contact your congressional representatives can be found in the podcast description. North Carolina Central University is hosting their annual Student Access and Success Conference in 2026. Click the link located on the episode description to learn more. In today's episode, we have Dr. Estevan Parra-Guerrero, the director of the Fresno State Trio Upward Bound program. Estevan is on the podcast to share his journey into Trio. Coming up in just a bit, Dr. Estevan Parra-Guerrero. A heartfelt thanks to our individual supporters, Angelica Villalpando, Rosario Riley, Dr. Ryan Barone, Dr. Jamie Motley, Dr. Jeff Napudi, Angelica Valdez, Felicia Rivera, Eric Lamaster, Jeff Calden, and Jaded Electronics. Thank you to our corporate sponsors, TrioJoblist.com, Nosotros Education Center, Longsdale Publishing, Student Access, and TheTrioStore.com, powered by Proforma. Visit www.thetriostore.com, your source for Trio graduation stoles. Thank you all so much for your continued support of this podcast. You too can be a sponsor of the podcast. Head on over to Patreon and search for Let's Talk Trio. Choose one of 4 patron levels. You can support this podcast for as little as $1 a month. If you own a business that serves the Trio community and want to sponsor the podcast, we have different sponsorship packages available. Contact us for details. Become a supporter with a one-time donation to the podcast business PayPal account. Our business handle there is @Let'sTalkTrio. Your support helps lift Trio voices. If you would like to nominate a participant, staff, or alumni to be on the podcast, send us an email at letstalktrio@gmail.com. That email again is letstalktrio@gmail.com. Again, a great episode featuring Dr. Estevan Parra-Guerrero, Director of the Trio Upward Bound program at Fresno State. Sit back, relax, and enjoy this episode. Hi, Trio Nation. My guest on the Let's Talk Trio podcast is the director of the Trio Upward Bound programs at California State University, Fresno, Dr. Estevan Parra-Guerrero. Dr. Parra-Guerrero is one of 11 siblings and a proud uncle to 25 nieces and nephews. Raised in South Central LA by formerly undocumented parents and navigating his youth as a closeted gay Mexicano, he brings a deeply personal lived experience that fuels his passion for educational equity. After earning a business degree and leaving a Fortune 500 company, he went on to pursue a master's in higher education administration and leadership. Most recently, he completed his Ed.D. doctoral degree in educational leadership and was named the 2025 Dean's Medalist by the Kremen School of Education and Human Development. Now serving as director of Trio Upward Bound, Dr. Parra-Guerrero supports 153 low-income first-generation students in achieving their college dreams. In recognition of his impact, he was named the 2024 Director of the Year and is a 2025 recipient of the 40 Under 40 Award in Central California. In his leisure time, he enjoys long walks with his dogs, visiting family in Porterville, California, taking random trips to Pismo Beach with his partner, and dancing Mexican folklorico. He enjoys bringing humor into the workplace and occasionally scaring his colleagues and students for a good laugh. We welcome to this podcast, Dr. Estevan Parra-Guerrero. Welcome.
Juan, thank you so much for having me. We look forward to this plática, this conversation. Thank you.
We are so thrilled to have you. Thank you so much for giving a bit of your time today to talk about you and your Trio journey.
Gracias. Thank you.
How are you doing today, Estevan?
You know, I think like many Trio professionals, many educators, we're just going with the flow, right? Trying to find the positive in every dark and negative situation, right? So I'm doing good, personally. I'm doing good. Thank you for asking, Juan.
Awesome. I can only imagine that between earning now that you've completed your doctoral program and running 2 Trio programs, you don't get much personal time.
You know, so thankfully, right, I successfully defended my research dissertation earlier this year in May. And
congratulations.
Gracias, thank you. But, you know, it was 8 consecutive semesters, so 3 straight years, no summer breaks.
Wow.
And you know, I did transition from in the middle of my doctoral degree. I did you know, started this position as a director. So it's never recommended, quote unquote, right, to start a new position, a professional role in the middle of a master's or doctoral degree. But I did it, you know, and I look forward to sharing more in the near future of why I did it. But to answer your question, Juan, you know, I it's really about having a support system at home and in the workplace. And that's what really helped me get to the finish line. So it's kind of like what the current president of Mexico said, I didn't arrive alone. We all arrived together because it really took a village to earn this degree.
That is wonderful. I love that. How do you find your time for folklorico? I'm so sorry. The words are kind of stumbling in my mouth. How did these interests develop for you? And yeah, how do you find time for these moments of joy?
Yeah, so with Recodico, it's people ask, "What's your hobby?" And it's not really a hobby; it's a passion. And I discovered that more than 10 years ago when I was a senior in high school. I was trying to fit in with my new school, and I joined a Recodico class. At first, I'm not gonna lie, I was ashamed, about that piece of my heritage, but it was through
Mhm.
Recodico that helped me reclaim my identity as a first generation Mexicano. And, it's really personal to me. So when I came to Fresno State as an incoming first generation freshman in 2008, I auditioned for the Folklorico group here at Fresno State and I made it. And the rest was history. I danced for 10 years professionally. So um, from time to time, again, because time was very limited and pursuing my doctorate and running two trio programs, I
Yeah.
was call. My director would give me a call and like, are you free next week? I can't, I'm writing. Or are you free this Saturday? I can't. I have a trio Saturday academy. But
Hmm.
from time to time, I would still support the program because it really supported me with my mental health and wellness.
So as we noted in your intro, you live in Fresno, California. What do you like most about Fresno?
So I was born and raised in South Central Los Angeles, as you mentioned earlier, Juan. And at the age of 16, my junior year in high school, my parents decided to gather my 10 siblings and, relocate to the Central Valley. And one of the things, I never went back home. I never went back to LA. I came to Fresno in 2008, so 2 years after arriving to Porterville, California. Um, I stay here in Fresno, and people ask me, "Do you see yourself going back?" And the truth is, I don't. Fresno, the Central Valley, not just Fresno,
Hmm.
but just the Central Valley is home to me. So what I enjoy about Fresno, Juan, everything appears to be at a much slower pace.
Hmm.
You go to San Francisco, which I love to visit. You go to LA, you go to San Diego, and it's always fast paced, but here it just reminds me to slow down, and appreciate the agriculture, right? So
Hmm.
I also believe that here in Fresno we have a strong community, and it keeps growing. I live near the Tower District, and I really love everything that happens in that area. Every other weekend there's an event in Tower District. Like just yesterday, there was it was like a puppy fest. So all
Oh,
community
wonderful.
members, yes, they dressed their puppies in Halloween costumes, and they were walking down the heart of Tower District. So pretty cool stuff going on every time.
That's awesome. I
Yeah,
love that.
yeah.
Uh, California is a wonderful state. It is my birth state, and every other year I take my kiddos up there to California for vacations. This last spring break, we went up there to Hollywood and the Santa Monica Pier. So it's almost easy to forget that California has a variety of like things to do. And like I think people know Los Angeles and they know San Francisco, but there's like surrounding areas that most folks don't know about.
Yeah. No, and I agree, Juan. I mean, and I know people, through professional development or whatnot, visiting different states, people complain about California being too expensive. But
Mm,
I always have to remind myself, if you hop on your car, and you go from Sacramento, drive all the way down to San Diego, you remember as to why it's worth living in California. Now,
mhm,
I do have to say, Juan, I do believe that in California we do live in a bubble. It's
mm,
we are like our own little world, our own little country, because the great experiences that we have in the beautiful state of California perhaps is not the same when you go to, Texas or Dakota or Philadelphia, right?
mhm,
So,
mhm.
and that's why we always encourage our high school students, right? Our colleagues, like go out there and explore, let's visit other institutions because it California is beautiful, yes, and is not the same in the other 49 states. So we have to be
That's
mindful
so
of
true.
that. Yeah.
Absolutely. So, what is something that 2025 has taught you?
Um, that's a good question, Juan. They're all great questions, but this one right here definitely hits home because, I strongly believe that we currently live in a very divided country, very divided
Mm,
society.
hmm.
And you know, I see it that there's current, bills that are being passed or, in Congress or, House of Representatives being discussed. These are bills that essentially do not dismiss my existence as a first generation gay Latin, right? So let's unpack this real quick. Recently, um, essentially it was made legal to racially profile people who look like us walking
Hmm.
down the streets.
Hmm.
And so now, Juan, as I'm trying to learn more about myself and what does this mean to be me right now in this current society, in this current world, I've learned forgiveness. Um, you know, and what do I mean by that? Recently, I attended a mentor, a former boss, celebration of life. And I strongly believe the way his career ended, the way his personal life ended, it was so unfair. And even I was holding like a grudge and having all these negative thoughts. But when I went to
Hmm.
his funeral, this individual planned his whole funeral, right? He was
Oh,
in
wow.
hospice
Yeah.
care, so he planned everything. And it was the most beautiful experience, inspiring too. And his wife went up there and said, my husband, all he asked for us to do is just to forgive, right? For forgiveness. And that really was brought so much peace to mind. So I'm working on that. But the second thing, one that I've learned, that I'm still learning actually, is how to protect my peace. Especially with everything going on in the world. I am, and to be fully transparent with you, I know that as men of color, or in our cultures, we don't talk about mental health a lot. And
Mm.
just last Friday, actually, a colleague asked me, Esteban, when do you see yourself running as a chapter president for SenCal Trio, the Trio SenCal chapter in the Central California, sorry. And I said, um, maybe next year. And this person is that she's a past president. And she said, Esteban,
Wow.
well, from 1 to 100, where are you on the scale? And I said, 75. And she said,
Hmm.
well, we all know you're more than ready. How do we get you to 100? And Juan, I don't know what it was at that moment that my heart I was just speaking from the heart. And I said, I always talk about, I always tell my colleagues, my students, that in order to pay it forward, first and foremost, you have to be okay here in the head, right, mentally, and also in your heart, right?
Absolutely. Hmm.
And I said, and right now, I don't feel okay mentally or in my heart.
Hmm.
And we started talking about therapy. And, so all that to say, Juan, I'm working on how to protect my peace. And that I have come to realize that I think it's time to see professional help, a therapist with that.
Hmm.
So I'm
Well,
working
thank
on
you.
that. That's pending.
Yeah. Well, Esteban, thank you so much for sharing. Can we take a quick moment back in time? Can we talk about like your family and your upbringing and all of that? Can you tell us a little bit about you and your family?
Of course. So dad and mom was born in Jalisco, Mexico. Dad was born in Michoacan, Mexico. And in the mid 80s, they decided to, like many people, pursue the American dream. And they came to Los Angeles, California, where they had, 11 children. And I was, again, born and raised there. And it wasn't until my high school years that my parents decided it was time to move. The gangs, the violence, the drive-bys, the shootings, it just became a norm. And that's not obviously healthy. So
Hmm.
my parents decided to, again, relocate to the Central Valley. And And that's pretty much how we ended up here as a family, as a unit, one.
That's awesome. I love that. Um, how would your family describe you?
Huh. You know, it's interesting because my dad and mom, they are the definition of opposites attract each other,
Oh,
right?
really? Uh-huh.
They bring that balance. My dad is very funny, people's person, very straightforward, right? Very straightforward. My mom, she tries to find all the positive and the negative, always asking people just ask for forgiveness, forgive people. No matter how bad they hurt you, just forgive. Uh,
Hmm.
so to answer that question, Juan, is it's kind of tough because my dad swears that eight of his 10, well, now there's 10 of us, of 11, that eight of his 10 kids have this attitude and they're very straightforward. And my sisters are like, Dad, we get it from you. So, so my dad says that there's only two of us out of the 10 that have my mom's personality, and it's me and my
Mm.
other brother. And I'm
Hmm.
thinking, no, Dad, I think I'm in the middle. I'm in, and I giggle when he says, only you and your brother Tony have your mom's personality. And I'm like, no, dude, when I have to pull your character, I pull it out, when I have to defend myself. So
Right.
I guess, but here's the ironic part. I will say like my dad, Juan, ironically, we share the same name. Ironically, and I'm not the first. I mean, usually in the Mexican culture, they name the first child after the dad, right? Or the first
Yeah.
daughter, mom.
Right.
Well, I'm seven, from oldest to youngest.
Wow.
And my dad decided to name me after himself, Esteban. And the most ironic thing ever is that I look just like my dad. If I was to show you a picture of me who's 35, yeah,
Spitting image.
at the mirror, exactly.
Isn't that funny how that works in families where you identify that people ask you like, who are you more like? Are you more like mom? Are you more like dad? And then as you divulge a little bit, they're like, you kind of sound like dad, or you kind of sound like mom.
Yeah, exactly.
We'll be right back after a word from our sponsor.
Are you seeking guidance to enhance your TRIO project's effectiveness and success? Look no further. Nosotros Education Center, NEC, is here to empower your TRIO project with expert consulting services. NEC's mission is to promote the effectiveness and impact of TRIO programs. Since 2003, NEC has specialized in providing professional development and in-service staff trainings, allowable cost services, for TRIO projects across the country. The team at NEC, with over 60 years of combined TRIO experience, offers customized workshops and seminars for project staff, compliance assessments, external evaluations, working on and submitting APRs, database customization and training, developments of policies and procedures manuals, and project implementation or reorganization services. Additionally, NEC has secured over $774 million in federal funding with a 92% success rate through their live and on-demand proposal workshops, assistance with data collection and review, detailed technical reviews, and comprehensive proposal development services. Join the hundreds of colleges, agencies, and TRIO projects across the country who benefited from NEC's expertise. Nosotros Education Center, your partner in TRIO's project success. Visit their website at nosotros.edu.org. Again, that's nosotrosedu.org.
And now, back to the podcast. Can you share a memorable part of your childhood? What sticks out when you think about childhood?
Um, that's a very deep question, Juan. Because there's the good, the bad, and the ugly. And I was talking to a recently hired coworker from a different trio program next door, and we were talking about the pedagogies of the home, what we learn at home.
Mm-hmm.
And at home, right, and the stereotype of being Latinos, the positive stereotype is that we're close to family, right? Familismo.
Mm-hmm.
And we care for mom and dad, and we're there for one another, and we're, very tight. But it's also important to talk about what we learn at home that wasn't the most positive things, right? Whether it was colorism, sexism, homophobia, transphobia, right? Um,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
so one of the memories that and I feel like I'm getting carried away here, but one of the memories that I have in my childhood or growing up, one is that I remember all the consejos my parents used to give me, all the advice, the do's and the don'ts. As a young kid, many of these things didn't make sense. I think they were just brutally honest. I was a
Mm-hmm.
kid. But now as an adult, I'm like, aha, I have those like epiphany, like those moments, those aha moments.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
Um, but I would say that my parents, as poor as they were, growing up, I remember that they would try to have a Sunday fun day with family. And my family was so large, continues to be so large that we never went to the tia house or the cousin's house because just amongst the 10 of us, well, with mom and dad, 12 of us, we had our own family barbecues. We had our own, trip to
Mm.
the park to Cabrillo Beach, which was not the cleanest beach, but my dad, and now as adults, I talk with my siblings and we say, as poor as my parents were, they really, really, really try their best to give us the best childhood. So to answer your question in summary, Juan, I think of the Sunday family days that continue to exist to this day.
That's wonderful. Do you remember what you wanted to be when you grew up?
So when I was in elementary, I remember I was part of the DARE program, like
Oh yeah, Dare, yeah.
yeah. And I remember I must have been in third or fourth grade. I wanted to be a judge. I remember writing a
Oh,
paper about that. Yeah, not a lawyer, a judge, like
Judge.
straight to business. And the
Mm-hmm.
other kids were like, "What does that even mean?" I'm like, "I don't know." I would say I Google it, but Google wasn't really there. I mean, I don't know. The internet was just coming out. But you know, then I obviously got older, went to middle school, and I remember wanting to open a nonprofit, believe it or not. I used to walk through this after
Wow.
school program. There was a building called a place called Home, a place called Home, and some of
Mm-hmm.
my peers would go there, and it was for for tutoring, games, basketball, essentially stay out of trouble, like an after school
Mm-hmm.
program. And as
Mm-hmm.
a kid, I remember in middle school, so I would like to open something like that. Obviously, at that time, I didn't
Wow.
know it was a nonprofit, but growing up, I was like, oh, that was considered a nonprofit, right? So a place called,
Yeah.
I'll never forget that. But then in high school, I remember, Juan, that I was really into just, I don't know if it was a Procodico, as I shared with you, it was my senior year in high school that I joined the Procodico program. But
Mm-hmm.
I swear, I wanted to go to higher ed, attend higher ed, pursue higher education, sorry, and be a Procodico, pardon, a professional dancer and or
Oh,
a photographer.
wow.
But again, truth be told, when I remember my second oldest sibling, Luis, second to oldest, he asked me like, Junior, so you're gonna go to Fresno State. What are you gonna do, right? Like, what's out there? Like, what's life after high school? So
Mm-hmm.
I responded. At this time, I was already, going into my senior year, and I said, "Oh, I'm gonna be with the most highest confidence one." I said, "I'm gonna be a professional dancer or a photographer."
Mm-hmm.
He said, "That's gay. Don't do that." And that
Mm.
immediately shut me down, one, because at that time I was still in the closet, right? As you read my introduction, I was closeted, so I couldn't afford or risk, giving any hint that I was part of the community. So I
Mm-hmm.
immediately pivot and I said, okay, well, I'm gonna go into business management, and I think that also played a my family when I was in LA. My parents decided to open like a ceramic business, and they were doing really well, and the idea of how the cash will flow, right? Um, you know, investing and producing and all that good stuff. So when my brother, And again, I don't blame him for that. Times were different. I'm sure as I share with you, Juan, my family is really tight, so I'm sure they're gonna listen to this podcast. So Luis, you don't have to text me that you're sorry. You don't. It's okay, brother. But all that to say, Juan, when I applied to Fresno State, I went into business management.
Wow. So from evolving into these various fields of interest, you landed on business because that it felt at the moment like, okay, then if that's a more solid career path or a
Yeah.
more feasible career path.
It was both. I was also thinking about the future too. The
Hmm.
future, and
Hmm.
so it was. I feel there's three. I guess three components of why I was influenced into business. One, again, my brother's comment. Two, my family running their own business. But three, again, I knew that in business, it was going to open way many doors than going into a field that's more, discipline center, like, oh, liberal studies,
Right.
right? Well, then likely
Right.
going to go into teaching. Or so for me, it was business management, not accounting, not marketing, not human resources, business
Business.
management.
Wow.
Yeah.
What do you remember most about the early part of your educational experience?
I really hate to, I don't, it's just it's a very dark place to go into, Juan. There was a lot of physical bullying in the educational, setting. Um, there was a lot, and I tried to think back at when was the first experience of bullying, and as far as I could go back, I want to say second grade. My
Hmm.
bully, his name was Fernando. Uh, Same thing, right? Again, at that time, I didn't know what being gay meant, so. I guess I was being judged because of my mannerisms, the way I would talk, the way I would walk, who I used to hang out with, which was mainly girls. And so there was a lot of physical violence, physical.
Mm.
Um, and I do remember though too, Juan, when I came from again from South Central Los Angeles to Porterville. Again, these are words that at that time I didn't know what they meant, but I remember my junior year in high school, Juan, I went into like the counseling office guiding and because I met some peers that were part of Avid, if you
Hmm.
were Avid, and I tried to apply, mind you, now it's a new setting, a new atmosphere, new students. For the first time I met white people, Asian, Punjabi, right? We didn't have it in South Central. In South Central, all of my friends and community members were African American, Black, and
Hmm.
Latina or Latinx. So when I came to Porterville, I started questioning our education system,
Hmm.
and I started asking myself, is it my zip code? Is it the color of my skin? Is it my language, my last name? Like, why all of a sudden in Porterville Unified School District am I getting all these amazing resources thrown at me? So I mentioned that one because at the age of 16, without even knowing, that's when I started to become, I guess, passionate about the field of education, right?
Wow.
Uh,
Okay.
Without even knowing, because I was questioning and challenging and also sharing the resources with those who were not part of Avid. Anyways, all that to say, I guess I was bugging too much that my senior year, the Avid teacher quote unquote adopted me as her avid child. So what she did
Hmm.
essentially, she gave me as a two teachers that she recruited me as a teacher's assistant, as a TA. I
Oh,
think it's
cool.
called a TA, a student
Yeah.
assistant pretty much. So I could get all the information. I could hear and pay attention about FAFSA, the CSU application, and all that good stuff.
Wow. So it sounds like navigating a kind of resource now filled and it's there, right? Wow.
Right, right.
Um, how did your family prepare you for your entry into high school?
Into high school,
Hmm.
uh, I mean, to be honest, one and again, times were different, but think about them trying to raise, 10 kids. Um,
That was a lot.
yes, I have to say it was really their consejos, their advice, don't screw up, right? Don't be part of the statistic. You don't want to end up working in the fields. You know, so it wasn't like you know pretty much you get what you get. It wasn't, we didn't have the privilege of like, oh, well, this high school has more ratings than this school. My parents have no idea how to I mean, you know how it is as a first gen, student or professional. We had to navigate spaces that aren't built for us, right? So
Right.
all of that, really, I have to give a shout out to my, older siblings, because I would tap on them like, hey, well, how did you navigate high school? Or, or they would look out for me. Um, you know, so it wasn't really my parents. I think to my parents, yes, it was a consejos. Um, it was advice, right? But if more than likely, Juan, I mean, I'm talking about more than 15 years ago. I'm almost sure it was my older siblings who were helping me out navigate high school or get prepared for high school. Sorry.
Oh, wow. Okay, so they really kind of help forge that path forward into high school.
Pretty
Like,
much, right? And again, there's such thing called observational learning, right?
true.
So by observing too, like, okay, my brother did that. That was a consequence. Don't do that, right? My sister did this. It worked out for her. Let's try that.
Sure.
So it
Yeah.
was a lot of observational learning.
Let's talk about your involvement level in high school. Did you identify early on like educational interest or extracurricular interest for you?
I guess yes or no. I mean, for sure, middle school, I was not part of anything, but high school, my freshman year, I was so lost in the world, right? I mean, I used to wear the baggiest clothes one.
I mean, was this early 2000s fashion, late 2000s fashion?
Well, I don't know, but that I mean, I almost got my behind whooped
Oh
multiple times
no.
by different gangs because I will walk through the neighborhood, from school, walking to my home.
Sure. Yeah,
And
yeah, yeah.
hey, fool, what do you claim? And I'm like, I don't claim nothing. I'm just trying to go home.
Oh.
But I was trying to fit in. So, I saw
Yeah.
the cool boys wearing baggy clothes. So let me
Yeah.
wear my baggy Raiders jersey and my Lakers, which by the way, they were not mine. They were my oldest brother, right? Who double the size as I was.
Hmm.
But
Hmm.
my sophomore year, I remember I attended three high schools. One, I don't think I mentioned that, but I went to three different high schools. And my sophomore year, I moved to my second high school, and I remember I tried out for track and field, and
Hmm.
I am not making this up, man. I ate it. Like I was sprinting so fast that I tripped and I landed on my stomach and I slid like the movies. And
Oh.
I'm like, I'm done. This is embarrassing. So I remember I was walking after school, after that embarrassment of falling, and I saw Armando, who now owns a barber shop in LA. He was one of the cool guys, right? One of the cool guys, had his own cool group of friends.
Yeah.
Well, I never forget that I'm leaving the field, and I see Armando diving off the diving board to jump into the swimming pool. And I was like, what the heck? Like, this guy's part of the swimming. Mind you, I didn't want to out myself or, the stereotype of water polo swimming is for gay kids and blah, blah, blah. But I saw
Hmm.
this cool guy, one of the coolest kids in my school, being in the swim team. And I was like, wait a minute, if he's doing it, getting away with it, like, I'm gonna join the swim team. So I joined the swim team and I wasn't that bad. But then I came my junior year again, relocated to Porterville, and these students now had like six packs. They were in shape. I was I was being terrible. I mean, I was ripped apart because they were great swimmers, professional like swimmers, and yeah. So from there, that's when I gave up on swimming, and that's when I joined the Folklorico, my senior
Oh
year.
wow.
So everything
Yeah.
happens for a reason, right? And in my senior
Absolutely.
year, I also joined Mecha, so I remember in regards to sports, again, track and field, well, in addition to that, folklorico, um, swimming, and Mecha were the things that I was part of.
That's wonderful. Can you tell us at what point did the college conversation enter your atmosphere or environment?
You know, sad to say, Juan, it wasn't until my junior year in high school, you know, and it was because I sometimes wonder, Juan, what would my life be if my entire family and I would have stayed in South Central, right?
Hmm.
Because when I came to Porterville, that's when all of a sudden people were talking about higher education and the CSU applied application and UCs, and I was just going with the flow, right? And for me, you know, I remember sitting next to this individual who's not my best friend, Benny. He would always come with a dance bag. And I would ask him, like, dude, what is that for? He said, oh, I dance for Puerto Rico. And he's Asian, he's Laos. And
Hmm.
I said, and I started hanging out with him, and he was determined. He was part of Avid, had a strong GPA. He applied to UCs, CSUs. So I stuck with him like a piece of gum. And I have
Hmm.
to say that, I think he played and and I know he's not listening to this podcast, to this episode one. So shout out to Benny Tansayan. Um, I have to say, now that I'm reflecting right now, he played a significant role as to why I ended up at Fresno State because I just tagged along, and he actually ended up being my roommate my freshman year in college.
That is
Um,
amazing.
yeah, and we danced together in higher ed. In fact, I just went to the Fresno State football game over the weekend, a homecoming game with Benny. So, um, to answer your question, Juan, it was my junior year in high school that I started thinking about what's life after high school.
Wow. And you were sharing earlier that an avid counselor kind of adopted you to
Yes.
provide that path. Can you tell us a little bit more about your avid counselor? How did they help you forge this path into college?
So again, right? They gave me like my senior year, I think I had like a free period or something, and she made it work where she essentially requested me to be like her teacher's assistant. And the teacher's assistant, right? They sit in the corner and they're hoping, grading papers or whatever, clean the classroom and whatnot. She actually
Hmm.
had me sit as one of her, like as if I was one of her students, and would
Wow.
have me, create a FAFSA account, CSU application, searching for scholarships, you know, and I'm glad you're asking these questions, Juan, because I'm literally remembering these memories right now. I'm just thinking that I was sitting with other who were legit avid students, but she gave me that opportunity to just sit there and not in the corner, right? Not on the side, very unapologetically, like I'm adopting you. Get your behind over here and get to work.
That's
So
awesome.
Mrs. Amon was one of the teachers that advocated for me to be her adopted child. She called me to this day.
That's awesome. I like that little term of endearment, like you're my adopted child. You're come over here. I'll teach you and guide you on your path. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Did you have certain colleges in mind as you were thinking about this college path?
You know, I did apply to off the top of my head, I remember it was San Francisco, Fresno State, Long Beach, Sacramento, and I forgot the other two. Um, but I know that there was gonna be some challenges with going far away from home to pursue higher education.
For
So
sure.
that's why I was very strategic about let me choose a local CSU just in case I can't leave, 70 miles radius away from home.
Absolutely. I find that very common among, would it be fair to classify you as a first generation student?
Oh, a first generation student, first generation professional. Yes.
And and in that space of being a first generation student is figuring out like what not only what college you want to attend to, but also how close you want to be with family and not moving too far away, right? Because yeah, totally understand that.
Well, and then part of it, one is because I see it right now with my own students' parents, that the dad or the mom or parents, they don't want to leave. They don't want to let their child leave the Central Valley,
Right, right.
right? So, and that's what happened to me with my dad.
Can you talk about the moment you graduated from high school? What did this moment mean to you and to your family?
You know, by that time, I was the seventh child, right, from my parents' children to graduate high school. Um, but I was the first to graduate outside of Los Angeles. So the first six siblings
Right
graduated
on.
in LA. We moved to Porterville.
Hmm.
So again, I that was by that time that was the third high school that I attended, Granite Hills High School. I was
Hmm.
there my junior and senior year. I think it to me personally, Juan, I think it was more of a blur. You know, and I say that because I'm sure I was excited, right? I'm sure I was
Yeah,
excited. But
right.
again, when you can't be your true self, right? Because you have to hide an identity for safety purposes. Um, I imagine it was exciting, but I also, it's a blur when I think of that question. Um, yeah.
Absolutely. But you ultimately decided to attend CSU Fresno. What steps did you take to prepare to enter your first semester in college?
Well, Juan, as I briefly shared earlier, I'll never forget, I the first institution that accepted me was San Francisco State. And it was a beautiful one-page letter, like on an envelope. It
Oh,
wasn't
yeah.
folded. It was just a nice, clean one sheet.
Did it come in a packet? Like usually, right? I remember when universities used to send those big packets of
Yeah,
acceptance.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah. And the first person I told, I want to say it was my dad. And I still remember this vividly. He was coming from work. I met him in the front of the house. And I said, Papá, me aceptaron a la escuela de San Francisco. That they accepted me to, San Francisco State. And his response was, ¿Estás loco? No te vas a ir tan lejos de la casa. You're crazy. You're not gonna go that
Oh.
far away from home. You're crazy.
Mm.
So that, no, it wasn't no congratulations. It was like, you ain't going that far. You're
Right.
not going that far. So again, that's how I selected Fresno State. The first time that I had a campus tour was the first day of classes. You know, that was the first time that I explored Fresno State
Hmm.
when I started in the fall of 2008. Um, and I again, Juan, I'm a firm believer that things happen for a reason because I was not prepared for higher education. I think that if I would have went against my dad's will and said, nope, I'm gonna go to SF State, I think I would have never graduated. I would have gotten
Hmm.
into a lot of bad trouble.
Hmm.
So at the time, it didn't make sense, right? Why Fresno State? But now it does. I mean, I've completed my third degree from here and now completing my seventh year as a professional of the institutions, and I love it here. Um, but to answer your question, how did I prepare myself for the first year you mentioned?
Hmm.
Um, I think for me, it was joining the Fricolico program, the Los Santos de Islam when I auditioned,
Hmm.
because it was, I don't think, Juan, it was, I'm not, sorry, I don't think, I know for a fact that joining Los Santos de Islam was my community, my home away from home, and it helped me continue to, reclaim that identity, right? The Mexicano and so on. So I know that people join fraternities, sororities. I joined for Gorico and I travel with them and I built lasting friendships. I still talk to the director, Dr. Victor Torres. Um, so I think what I'm trying to say, Juan, is it was through those extracurricular activities, in this case, a dance group, that helped me network with other students, with strangers, right? And also introduce me to other resources. Because let's think about this, right? I joined this group and there were some seniors, some juniors, so we're sharing resources, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
So reflecting on this question, I would say that it was joining that Fricodico program that helped me equip not just for my first year but for my undergrad and also master's program.
Wow. It really sounds like it really set you up and built a foundation to stand on.
Absolutely.
That's
Absolutely.
wonderful. Talk about your first year at Fresno State. What do you remember most about this time?
Juan, again, going back to the good, the bad, and the ugly, but I'm only sharing this because I, I want, one, I identify as part of the LGBTQ plus community, but two, um, I always wonder if I went through this, I wonder how many students across the nation are going through something similar. But my
Mm.
freshman year, one, I went to the Student Health and Counseling Center for some blood work, and this doctor um, who was helping me, she read the reasoning as to why I was visiting the Student Health and Counseling Center here at Fresno
Hmm.
State. And the first words that came out of her mouth were that sex, that was disgusting, that sex was between a man and a woman, and
Mm.
marriage is between a woman and a man. And that was my freshman year at Fresno State. And I remember leaving that center and I was stuck. I couldn't ask for help because I was closeted. I didn't want to go to whatever human resources or the president at that time. I kept this to myself. I didn't go back to that center for years. And now, right, as a professional, as someone who's out and loud and proud, you know, and I reflect on these experiences. You know, you ask me this question, and I'm like, man, like that happened to me. I struggled tremendously during my undergrad. And I wonder how many students quit higher education because of those type of experiences.
Mm.
Here you
Hmm.
go, giving your full trust to a professional who their job is just to serve you and support you, and you receive that as you know instead. So um, that's that's one of the memories that I have at an undergrad one. But you know, I must say that Fresno State since then has come a long way in becoming a more inclusive institution, like many other institutions. Like I was just in Porterville College earlier this month raising the pride flag. Porterville College is surrounded by farmers, Confederate flags, and
Mm.
raise a pride flag. And I
Hmm.
said it, you know, as an institution in this country, we've come a long ways to support all students, but we still have so much work to do, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Um, so I don't know, Juan, I think I got carried away with your
No, no,
question.
no, you're good. Thank you for that reflection because I think it's important to hear your full experience and how you navigated those challenges. Also to know that you've had to overcome a lot to get to this point.
Right. Um, no, yeah, yeah, Juan, and I'll leave it at that.
Well, thank you again for sharing. Did you know what major you wanted to be in once you've went into Fresno State, or did you have a chance to explore various other programs?
No, I mean, I was determined, as I shared earlier, right? My experiences of wanting to be a dancer, a photographer.
Hmm.
I stuck to business. However, though, I must say that it wasn't, I think it was my third year or going into my fourth year. I, something in my heart told me, like, I don't want to, I'm not going to be good in selling product or sales. Like, I want to help people,
Mm.
you know? I want to pay it
Hmm.
forward. And I remember I went to an advisor and I shared that I was thinking of you know, rerouting my major and going into social work or counseling. And this advisor, which again was not the best advice, said to me, stick to business. That's where the money's at. And you're already way too
Wow.
deep into your major to change your major, your degree.
You must have
So
been crushed.
yeah, so I stuck to business. And again,
Yeah.
I'm I sound like a broken record. I'm a firm believer that things happen for a reason because I struggled to earn my degree in business to complete it, but I genuinely learned a lot. And
Hmm.
when I graduated with my business degree, I landed a job for a Fortune 500 company. And everything that I've learned, you know, I'm grateful that what I learned in my business degree, I was applying it I was applying it to the field. But yeah, not the best advice from a advisor.
Many first generation students face a multitude of challenges when in college. So they range from like homesickness to academic struggles. Did you face any challenges while in college? Obviously, we heard some of those things, but how did you overcome them? How did you get, uh, not only face it, but be able to be accept it or overcome it?
Well, look, Juan, I have to say, and it ties back to the my earlier response about that experience I had with homophobia. And I have to say, this person's no longer here. Presentation was released many years ago, but um, there's always someone in the room who is ready to listen to your story
Hmm.
and who is ready to offer a hand and a shoulder to lean on. So for me, hell yeah, I cried 2 weeks straight when I left Porterville, which is only an hour and 10 minutes away from Fresno. Okay. But I
Right,
cried,
right.
family cried. I mean, I think there was about eight of my siblings came to drop me off with mom and dad. Okay. I'm making this up. And we were crying in my new apartment with my friend Benny. And yeah, no, I cried for like 2 weeks straight, but again, in joining groups like there's over three, like many institutions, There's more than 300, right, clubs and orgs. There's one for you. And I joined the Frecortico group, but also outside from that, Frecortico program, just finding, it could be another closeted student or someone who's out, share, this is what I'm going through. Can you support me behind closed doors, right? Can you give me resources behind closed doors? But now as a professional, Juan, now as a first-gen professional, I'm here to tell students and even coworkers, you're not alone in this journey, right? No matter how dark this tunnel gets, I promise you, we will and we can find a light at the end of this dark tunnel, right? You don't have to do it alone.
I love the positivity that you bring from your experiences and wanting to provide that resource and support to students. That's wonderful,
Thank
Esteban.
you.
So I'm going to rephrase this question because I feel like I already asked it, but I want to know that did your family's business and what you wanted to do in the future play a huge factor in your decision to stay as a business major?
Yeah, 100%. 100, I mean, you're talking about two undocumented people, partner, that came from nothing and they started a ceramic business. And it was a family business. It was literally, I wish I could show you some photos, but literally the back of the backyard of the house, one person was painting, the other person was mixing the ceramic, the other brother was, shaking, with the molding the ceramic, and then the other brother was loading up the orders on the van, driving to downtown LA to sell to businesses. It was literally all a family, function, and
Wow.
yeah, that's why I said the cash flow, right? How it will go in and roll around and exit. So that definitely played an influence in my decision to pursue a degree in business.
So there must have been a certain career you were looking after. Was there something that you were looking at to land in?
This is embarrassing, not kind of, but when I was in high school, when I first started Fresno State, same question. My sister Stefania, she asked me, Junior, so what do you want to do with this business degree? Again, don't judge me, listeners, don't judge me, but I told my sister, and she reminded me earlier, actually a few months ago, and I was embarrassed, but I told her that I wanted to open a nightclub, and I was gonna call
A
it
nightclub.
Naughty Angels. Don't ask me why. I don't know why. But earlier this year, my sister Stefania, she says, Junior, remember, are you still gonna open your club? And I said, what club? She said, Naughty Angels. And I busted laughing because I was like, you still remember that stupid thing that came out of my mouth? Um, but yeah, oh, so then Juan, within my business degree, I met this professor who said those majoring in business management, he highly encouraged to go into retail management after graduation
Mhm.
because according to this professor, who I agree, he said that it's going to be in retail management, so like Target, Marshalls, etc., where you're going to apply everything about management, everything that we learn, the core curriculum that we learn in the business degree in regards to marketing, human resources, profit and loss statements, policies. You're gonna learn all that. You're gonna apply all that in retail management. And this professor said, give it 2 to 3 years and then branch out to something more, I guess, to advance your career.
Uh-huh.
But to start off, right, like your first quote unquote big boy, big girl job, retail management. So that was my goal. That was my goal. That I set for myself after my business degree. I need to apply to different retail, companies to apply these skills.
Now we're going to talk about this here in a little bit, but you went from business to trio and education. It was kind of like an about face, very sudden. But can you tell us, when did you learn about trio, or when did trio uh, entered your atmosphere?
Yeah. So again, it took me 6 years and a half to earn my degree in business. Barely graduated with like a 2.56 GPA, but we did it. Um, we did it, but and I do have to say though, on a side note, Juan, I did have I think it's called undetected or undiagnosed ADHD. Again, we didn't talk about
Mm,
mental health. Later on in
mhm.
life, found out, got tested, medicated, and I excelled in my master's, 4.0 compared to a 2.56 GPA. But 2014, I graduated, business degree. uh, January 2015, started working for this Fortune 500 company. And I knew again that I was enjoying what I was doing, but in the back of my mind, I said, I really want to just help people. And I had all these questions, right? Quote unquote, I I did it, right? I have a 401k now, but what about my friends in South Central LA? That
Mm.
have the same support, etc. So I had all these questions. So I'm saying that to say that the following year, that's when I applied for my master's degree in education because
Mm.
my goal was then two reasons. One, I wanted to go find out my why, the answers to my questions, was it my zip code? Why is it that, my friends in LA and myself didn't get the resources, but then I came to the Central Valley and better teachers, better. So I had that purpose of like, I need to go find my answers. But the second reason as to why I pursued a master's education was because I wanted to teach part-time, at a community
Mm.
college. And so I was
Mm.
told you need at least a master's. So that's when, again, a year later, following year, I applied for the Master's in Education Administration Leadership Program. I'm not ashamed at all to say that I was conditionally accepted. What that meant was we're temporarily accepting you because your writing is not the best, and you have a year to prove to us that your writing is has, you know, as a not an increase. What's the word I'm trying to use? Your writing has improved.
Yes.
So all that to say, Juan, I started the master's program fall of 2016, right? So a year and a half after I graduated, and I needed a unit. I needed one more unit to be considered a full-time student. So the classes that were required for the first semester of my master's program, I was still short one unit, and I
Mm.
needed that unit to qualify for FAFSA. So there was a bowling class that we have here for one unit, or track, or gym, or dancing. And I was looking at the one unit courses, and I came across an internship, community service one unit course. And that's how I was introduced to Trio. In
Wow.
2016, I selected this particular program. I read their mission statement, their vision. And I was like, oh, wow, like that's me. Like I see myself in these kids. And so that was the first time that I was introduced to Trio, Juan.
Wow. Well, Trio is all the better for it because now you're a Trio professional, and I think that adding your experience and your knowledge just adds to the program. So that's wonderful.
Thank you.
Can you share your overall experience at Fresno State, and what do you remember most about your time as an undergraduate student?
Again, I'll focus on the positive. Really, it was performing at the Chicano Latino commencement in front of 18,000 attendees, celebrating the Chicano Latino commencement at Fresno State is the largest Latino celebration in this country. Uh,
Mm.
so all of my positive memories, one is all through the arts, through Procodico. I performed twice
That's wonderful.
at the halftime show, football halftime
Mhm.
show during Hispanic Heritage Month. I performed at the University House, in front of president and donors, Texas, Arizona. So those were the best memories, the positive memories in my undergrad.
Can you talk about the moment you graduated from Fresno State? What did this moment mean to you personally?
Well, again, I was still, closeted, but I did graduate with my sister. She's a year younger than I am, but she caught on to me because I kept failing courses, and that was very special. To see my other its siblings in the audience, right, in the Seymour Center, at the Seymour Center with mom and dad, and at that time there was like 12 nephews and nieces. I do remember me and my sister crying because of the beautiful message that the keynote speaker was sharing, with the audience. So it was a bunch of joy, a bundles of joys, all the way around. One.
That's wonderful. Now, I did do some research, so a huge shout out to LinkedIn for a moment
Yeah.
regarding your work history because you went to work for the private sector for a bit. You went to Palm Wonderful, then Sherwin-Williams. Then you decided to enter to work in higher education, which, like we were talking about earlier, that's a huge about face because usually you stick in the private sector, or folks who work in the private sector stay in the private sector. What inspired this transition?
Yeah, so again, as I shared earlier, my goal was to just stay as a manager at this Sherwin-Williams, Fortune 500 company, and then in the evenings just teach a few, courses in community college. But then I started the master's program, and I was just overwhelmed with so much knowledge. And I said, no way, I want to commit to education 100%. Like, screw I want to commit to education. And so fast forward, it was the third semester. So there's 4 semesters in the master's program. It was fall of 2017. I was essentially giving a talk like this, as a first generation grad master student. How was I navigating spaces that I have built for us? So I was sharing my
Hmm.
story, right?
Yeah.
And someone in the audience, huge shout out to Dr. Maritere Lopez, was there, and she listened to my story. I went home. A few weeks later, I get a call from Dr. Maritere Lopez, and she says, "Hey, I heard your story. If you are serious about rerouting to supporting education 100%, I have a very, very entry level position for you. Now, I'm telling you now, you are going to take a huge pay cut because I can already tell you that I can afford you. However," she said, "getting into higher education as an educator, it's really competitive. And again, if you're serious
Mm-hmm.
about committing to education 100%, this is your chance." And so, yeah, in the spring of 2018, right before I graduated, Juan, I started working at this position. I was supporting first gen graduate students.
Oh,
I was
awesome.
supporting them, yeah, succeed in their grad studies, the master's program. And then from there, after a year and a month, I applied to another position to do DEI work, diversity, equity, and inclusion. I was there for 3 years, and one of my mentors asked me, "Esteban, where do you see yourself?" And I said, "When let me backtrack one. When I
Yep.
started my entry level position with Dr. Maritere Lopez, she asked me, Esteban, the grant's gonna end soon, right? It was a grant, HSI Grant B, federally funded program. She says, the grant's gonna end soon. Where do you see yourself so I could help you get there?" And I said, "There's 2 offices I see myself, the DEI, the Multicultural Center, and Upper Bound." And it's
Mm-hmm.
crazy how life works, one, because I actually fulfill those 2 centers. I did my DEI 3 years, and then I applied to Fresno State Upper Bound. Now, it wasn't all unicorns, truth be told. I applied as a counselor 2016, and I didn't get a call for an interview. Then in 2020, I applied again as a counselor, and I was a finalist. And I didn't get the call, the offer. So this, years passed by, and again, I'm just grateful that I learned that it didn't work out during that time because I wasn't ready, I don't think. So the third time, I said, you know what, third time's a charm, go big or go home. The director position is open. Let's go ahead and apply. And so I'm
Mm-hmm.
going on my third year now, Juan, as a director of Fresno State Upper programs.
Like you said, everything kind of works out for a reason, and that's wonderful.
Yeah.
Sandwiched between all of this in your entry level position plus uh or correct me if I'm wrong, it was during your during the master's program that you had to work and go to graduate school and juggle your personal life. How did you manage all of that?
You know, it's interesting because when I was pursuing my master's, I was working in Porterville, an hour and 15 minutes away at Sherwin-Williams, that company, Fortune 500 company. And I did the math one, which I shouldn't have because I was very upset during that time. I would literally spend in 1 month, okay, while pursuing my master's and driving to Porterville, an hour and 10 minutes away, I was driving 40 hours in just 1 month, 40 hours
40
worth,
hours? That's a
40
whole
hours
work week.
were just invested in driving from point A to B, work, school. And I'm like, man, that could be 40 hours of homework, 40 hours of family time, 40 hours of whatever.
Hmm.
And so then I took 3 years off, right, from my master's and my doctorate. And it was post-pandemic when I applied, and I knew what I was getting myself into. Like I knew to talk to my family, like, hey, if I go MIA, This is the why. I learned from my experiences in the master's program. You know, if I was having a bad day because I was lacking sleep, I was, irritated at work, and because I still have so much homework to do, I learned that, you know what, Esteban? Stay in your office, cool down for a little bit before you go home, because your partner's gonna need your negative energy, right? So what I started doing, Juan, to just, I guess, help me with my work-life balance, quote unquote. I will go on a lot of walks, as I shared with you. I had to cut back from Puerto Rico because we used to practice 8 to midnight, Tuesday and
Oh my
Thursday.
gosh, yeah, that sounds intense.
No way I could afford that with my time. So I started walking a lot and jogging here and there.
Right on. So going to all of this stuff, right? Getting grad school work done. Can you share with the audience what is the difference between being a undergrad and graduate student to you? What is the difference?
So to me, it's interesting because when people ask me, well, what's easier, undergrad or master's? And it's like, it just depends, undergrad, you're all over the place. You have to take different classes and you're in your own pace, which is not a good thing because then you stay like me, 6 years and a half, right? And it's okay as long as you get to the finish line. One of my mentors, he took 10 years and it's all good. He's very successful now. But my master's is more structured and it was cohort based. So
Oh,
we cried together, we laughed together, we got upset at each other, but we always talked it out. Um, so, with the master's then, Juan, it's more, I guess, uh, like, I guess academically discipline focused, right? Like, it's just pretty much straight tunnel vision, right? As opposed to undergrad, it's scattered. You have your electives, you have your upper courses, your lower courses, and you have to kind of manage that on your own to see, wait, I took the wrong class. Didn't count, right? So as opposed to your masters, they're very structured. Like, here's your flow chart. You have 30 units to complete this in 2 years. Get to work, right?
yeah,
So
so
I
true.
personally enjoy my master's much better for sure.
What did it mean to you to earn your master's degree?
Well, Juan, I was the first, in my family, right? And always, I always tell myself, when I take on like a new project, or in this case, a master's or a doctorate, um, I do it not just for myself, but for my 25 nephews and nieces, for my community, right? The community that was left behind because of this broken education system. I'm talking about South Central. So it's beyond me, and at times I have to also give myself grace because then I add all this additional pressure and stress, like, oh my God, like I need to represent my communities, right? Represent my family. So um to me, Juan, what it means to graduate with a master's, it's a win, not just for me, but a win for all, a win for all.
Absolutely. Okay, so now we're going to come back to your change into higher education and your
Yeah.
experience as a trio. Can you talk about your career here before being the director? I know you shared a little bit about working in a grant and attempting to apply into your programs, but can you share a little bit more about this transition and phase of your life?
Yeah, so I came to Fresno State well, I've been here since 2008, but as a professional in the spring of 2018. And Dr. Maritela Lopez told me, Esteban, again, if you're serious about higher ed, I got you. I'm going to mentor you. I'm going to help you get a more permanent position. Now, check this out, Juan. I had a very promising career at Sherwin-Williams. I mean, I used to get my quarterly bonuses. We're not going anywhere. This company has been around for more than 150 years. It's one of the oldest American companies. Um, so you want to talk about financial stability, right? A promising
Yeah, job
career.
there.
Esteban, what are you doing? Transitioning to this other field. Because when Dr. Maritela Lopez invited me, she said, just to be clear, there's only 2 years left of this grant and we're not being renewed. So it's a risk, but I promise you I'm going to help you through mentorship. And so I trusted her. And she did. She delivered. She helped me. And it's in that building, Juan, next to us, there was a multicultural center. And when I used to go to the restroom or walk through the hallway, I used to see Dr. Francino Pura, who was a director, may she rest in peace, of the Cross Culture and Gender Center. And, I always wanted to learn more about other people who look different than me or have different beliefs. So I would attend workshops that were facilitated by Dr. Puda. You know,
Mm-hmm.
people talked about respecting people's pronouns, and I'm like, what does that even mean? Like, it was my ignorance, lack of education. So I said, you know what? Let me do my part and at a workshop, attend a workshop. And I had to remind myself one, which I hope the listeners in this audience also picked on this, but when you serve as an educator, right, you're here to serve all students. It doesn't matter the color of their skin, their sexual orientation, right, their gender identity. You're here to serve all students. And for that reason, I was challenging myself, attending this DEI workshop. So the reason why I'm saying that, one, is because that my participation in these workshops, then it turned into something beautiful. The director of the center, of the Multicultural Center, said, Esteban, I may have an opening as an interim coordinator. Are you interested? And so I said yes, as an interim. Another risk, because it was only a 3-month appointment. I then still had to apply. I applied and I gave them 3 years and a month. And I got to the point, Juan, to answer your question. I said, I maximize all the skills. I gave this multicultural center everything that I could. I left the program and higher standards. It's time for someone else to take the lead, and it's time for me to pursue a different position at a higher capacity to serve more students at a larger scale.
Mm-hmm.
And I that's the reason why I told you earlier. I said, go big or go home, Esteban. I'm gonna return to Upper Bound, but this time not as a counselor, not for the third time, but this time as a director. And so here I am, Juan.
Yeah, here you are 3 years later. It'll be 3 in January, right?
Yes, yes.
What is something that you've learned about yourself while in this position?
Uh, Worst thing that I learned about myself. Um, Give me a second one.
Sure thing.
I think really coming here with an open heart, an open mind, an open heart. And it's not so much that I learned about myself, it's just I was reminded because again, I'm first generation, right? I had my own struggles, but that doesn't mean that every first generation has the same struggles. There might be a lot of overlap, but some of the students that I serve, I can't help but go home and cry, or write about it or tell my partner about it
Yeah.
because it's some deep, dark stuff, and so for me again, it's not that I learned about myself. It's just I'm always reminded to just walk in with an open heart. Be ready to listen, right? Don't listen to talk, and then always try to offer the best resources for all.
Esteban, I couldn't help but notice, and I'll note this for the audience, as you were reflecting and you talked about Trio Upward Bound, you had this like big smile on your face,
Ah,
and you had like this very like,
yeah,
and just in that reflective moment, sorry, I'm putting it out to the audience so they
it,
can just picture, like it brings you such joy to work with Upward
yeah,
Bound.
it does. It truly does. It's such a gift, honestly. It really is such a gift to be in this position.
Can you talk about your Trio program? What are some highlights you'd like to share with the audience?
You know, um, I have a very passionate team, and one of my core values as a leader is open communication. It's always so hard for me, Juan, to give an annual evaluation to employees because everything that I wanted to say, I've been saying it when it happens, right? It's like, let's
Mm-hmm.
get this
Mm-hmm.
right away and let's move on with life. And so I'm saying that because this is not this took a team effort, right? But some of the successes or highlights so far, um, our toy drive. In 2023, 2024, we hosted a toy drive. We collected more than 630 toys,
Wow.
and we donated to 5 different organizations. One of them was Lavina Elementary, where all 200 of their students from pre-K to 8th grade all received, it's a small school, all receive a toy. Then we also partner with the Diaz Family Foundation. They have a foundation in Guanajuato, Mexico, and they serve 20 students, 20 kids with special needs, disabilities. So we also shipped 20 toys to Guanajuato, Mexico, to 14 Boys and Girls Club, the county of Fresno, and a foster youth agency. So that was all through our Upper Bound toy drive. We collected toys. Our upper bounders came to our campus and they wrapped all 600 plus toys. And then
Whoa.
they put a sticky note saying who from who it was wrapped and about Upper Bound in their high school, right? So it was very intentional.
Mhm.
Another highlight was one of our students through our summer programs. You know, we try to partner with different offices for internship opportunities, and Fresno State Athletics, for the first time, they hired a minor. They said it
Wow.
was two minors, but one of them didn't have transportation. Um, one of our students was two of our students, but one of them unfortunately had to decline. So I don't have a ride. Like I don't, I just don't have a car. But the other student who did accept, um, yeah, uh, the Department of Athletics said this is the first time that we hire a minor, but they're so great kids. They did phenomenal work, and they even their senior year in high school, they were still working, and they came to Fresno State. They had a job waiting for them in athletics,
Wow.
right? Um, and then another, highlight, which is really common with not just with Upper Bound Fresno State, but across the country. One of our students, she last year she was accepted to Johns Hopkins University, and it's a 7% acceptance rate, and she did it. She packed her
Wow.
stuff and went to Baltimore, and she's there succeeding and thriving.
Isn't that like a medical school or what like they have a focus, don't they?
They I cannot tell you off the top of my head, but all I remember is that it's a 7% acceptance rate. And
That is
Univision,
intense.
Fox News, ABC, they did a whole segment of her because,
That's awesome.
parents are, field workers, work in the fields, and she packed her stuff and left.
That's awesome. Well, congratulations to your student. Let me ask, what is your favorite memory so far working with Trio Upward Bound?
I'll share a few, Juan. Last 2 summers ago, we went to San Diego State University and UC San Diego. At San Diego State, they have a Chipotle. And so we gave our students gift cards so they could buy their with the exact dollar amount and change, so they could order a burrito or quesadilla, etc. And so we had about 68 kids that summer. They're making line, and I'm observing, right? Staff, for the most part, that they eat at the very end. And I'm observing, and I see a group of like 5 students who are just off to the side, and they look confused, looking at the menu.
Mm.
So I said, wait a minute, this is not sitting well with me. So I went up to them and I said, hey, chicos, chicas. I said, are y'all getting ready to order? And they were just like quiet. And I said, have y'all been to Chipotle before? And they're like, no. And I said, oh, I
Oh.
said, it's like Subway. And they were still so confused, Juan.
Mm.
And I
Mm.
said, have y'all been to and I was being extra careful with my tone, right? I don't want to make them feel less than. I said, wait, have y'all been to Subway before? And they're like, no. I said, you got it. I'm gonna go in front of you. I'm gonna cut you. You're gonna see how I order my food. I order for you, but I want you to learn. Okay?
Hmm.
So just follow my lead.
Hmm.
And that right there, Juan, I was just reminded, right, that the people who we serve, right?
That's
The
awesome.
students who we serve and the families. And most recently, during summer programs this year, I brought my regalia, my doctoral regalia, and I gave a presentation about, you know, um, a difference between a bachelor's, master's, doctorate, and I hung the regalia at the end on the back of the classroom, and I told my students, if you wish to take a picture with that, go right ahead. It's the most expensive piece of clothing that I have, but I'm here to share it. You could borrow
Yeah.
it when you pursue your doctorate. And I had
Yeah.
about 10 kids that went up and they were taking selfies with the regalia. And so I took
That's
pictures
awesome.
of that. And I started calling them, Dr. Riveras, Dr. Rivas, Dr. Just to
Oh, that's
manifest
awesome.
that, to manifest that. So it was pretty amazing.
The power of manifestation, I feel like envisioning, right? Helping the students see themselves in that.
100%.
You really provided a great opportunity for them to see themselves in that space.
And I agree, Juan. I mean, the the first time that I touched the regalia was mine when I bought it. The first time that I wore one was
Yeah.
so I
Yeah.
wanted to, I don't know. I think one for me, one of the the beautiful reasons of why I love this position. You mentioned, that I smiled when I mentioned trio. I literally get to be the educator that I needed growing up, you know? Um, literally, and that's any trio professional. We get to be the educators that we needed growing up. And that's powerful.
That is very, very powerful. What is your favorite thing about being a director?
You know what? Exactly that. Being the educator that I needed growing up, protecting my students, but also letting them know that it's tough out there in the streets for us folks.
Yes.
So how do we
Yes.
provide you with some, strong soft skills to survive, and I'm very clear, Juan, that I tell them, we go into these bookstores, they use these and they're staring at us. Don't don't drop the ball. Don't don't
Mhm.
don't grab stuff that does not belong to you because congratulations, you're gonna fit the statistic, or at least what they want you to do. And I
Mhm.
remind them every summer, these higher ed institutions were not built for people like us, right? But I'm
Mhm.
telling you now, so we could provide you the resources. So when you get that imposter syndrome, you check yourself, validate your feelings, and say, screw that. I deserve a seat at that table.
Mhm.
So,
Absolutely.
and I always tell parents when they're crying during our senior recognition, like, oh my God, my babies are leaving. Yo, we did our part, you did your part. Now they're gonna succeed in higher ed. Right.
Uh, that's a wonderful sentiment that you're closing it off with on this part of the interview. So that's wonderful. Where do you see yourself 2 to 5 years from now? Yeah.
Great question, Juan. Look, I really I want to rewrite this grant. Next year is my turn to write for the next 5 year cycle. So send me all your thoughts and prayers for those who pray.
All the good vibes to your way.
Thank you, because we're going through it right now with this current administration. Um, and I still have yet to fulfill my dream to teach part-time. So I'm working on that. I want to be a director, not no longer the manager, but the director, but also teach part-time. But my own boss, my own, you know, direct supervisor has asked me, Esteban, what's next? And I'm like, what do you mean? Because I mean, when have you heard of a supervisor asking you, "Juan, what's next for you? And how can I
Yeah.
support you to get there?" Right?
Yeah.
They usually
It's
want
very
to,
rare.
yeah, they want to keep the talent and be greedy and selfish. But this shout out to Dr. AVP Martina Granados. She told me, Esteban, like, you're doing amazing things. You and your team have elevated the program. Things that she used to be the director, part of Upper Bound for 25 years, this current office. And
Wow.
she said to me, you and your team are doing things that I didn't even think about in the 25 years that I was there. So what's next? So I think those type of questions, one has slowly like implemented like planted a seed of like, okay, what is next, right? No rush at all. But if I could be the dean where I oversee all the trio programs, or dean of students, somewhere I'm tied still to programs like Upper Bound. I think that's where I see myself in the near future.
I can definitely see that for you. Absolutely.
Um,
What advice do you have for trio professionals listening to this podcast?
Uh, for trio professionals or professionals,
The professionals. Mhm.
you know, really, here's some advice. Um, and I recently shared it with the students. I told the student, I said, write down a list of people who you look up to. It could be celebrities, it could be your parents, your uncles, professors, and pay attention to the leadership traits because none of us are perfect, right? No leader is perfect. So I told them, and this is what I want to share with all of you. Make a list of people who you admire, who you look up to, and pick and choose all the strong traits that they have so you could continue to mold your own leadership style, your own identity. Okay? Don't replicate, don't lose your authenticity, but pick and choose which traits can you pick on to continue molding your own leadership as you continue to grow in this field. And the second thing that I would recommend, Juan, is we talked earlier about the pedagogies of the home, right? What are some of the things that we learn at home? I really encourage you all to do a deep reflection of how do those conceptos, advice, um, lessons that you learn at home, how do they present themselves, right? And you have to ask yourself, do you want to amplify those and continue leading with those advice that you learn at home? Or is it time to let them go, right? So I call this, do you want to, what learning should you continue doing and what unlearning you must do to be a better educator? So an example that I would give one is this. My parents taught me not to question leadership. Why not? My parents taught me that you just say yes to everything. They ask you to jump, respond how high. But why?
Mhm.
So I really encourage all listeners to really reflect on that advice that you learn at home and how is it influencing or affecting your leadership style right now, right? Are you being exploited? Are you being overworked? Because your parents taught you not to question leadership, just do it. So really, those are my two things. Leadership traits and also what learning and unlearning should you must do based on what you learn from home.
That is great advice. What words of wisdom would you share with TRIO participants, whether they're pre-college, in college, or those non-traditional students that are thinking about coming back to college?
I always tell my students it's a privilege to be part of Upper Bound, to be part of TRIO. It truly is a privilege. Don't forget to pay it forward. Don't forget to, because remember when I've been there where I was the adopted, average student,
Hmm.
um, don't forget to, as you're learning about CSU application scholarships, tap to your peer next door, right? Next to your, in your classroom, be, hey, have you heard of these deadlines? No, let me share these resources with you, right? So I always tell my kids that's what comes to mind. Pay it forward. No matter how far you make it in this world, do not forget to pay it forward.
I think that's super important and part of that character building that students should have, right? That should be automatic, that we think about ahead and those it was phrased differently in a TRIO program that I was part in a long time ago is how are you helping people pull them up as they join you in that ladder of success?
Mhm.
Are you reaching your hand back and pulling them up? So I
Yeah,
love that.
yeah.
What is something that you're reading, watching, or listening to?
You know what, Kwan? I gave myself permission to not read because I did a lot of reading.
Absolutely.
Like, it's like I could barely
Oh,
read. Listen,
yeah.
I could barely read this email. So I'm like, oh, do I really, this could have been a conversation. But no, right now, I'm really, what I'm really listening to like just ADHD, like music, just sounds, just to, I tend to be my brain just gets really overstimulated with everything that's going on. So if you literally search on Spotify, ADHD music, it's just all sounds, no distractions. But I
Mm,
do, from time to time, podcasts for sure, especially when I'm driving home.
awesome. Describe yourself using only one word.
Hopeful. Um, Recently, one of my students asked me, Dr. Parra, he said, uh, what do you hope? What brings you hope for the future? And I said, literally, you all, my trio upper bound
That's
student,
wonderful.
because you are the next generation who's going to take over. And a form of resistance one is showing up. For me, it's showing up. And I could have easily,
Absolutely.
quit this job. I'm done with Trio. We didn't, we might not get our funding. I'm done. I stuck it through the end, even though we went 21 days without our budget because the administration was holding it.
Oh yeah, that's right.
All-
That's right.
We all still showed up, my entire team. So I was asked that question, what brings you hope to students? So the reason why I describe myself now in one word is hopeful because look, you could be resilient, right? You could be strategic, you could be intelligent, whatever. But once you lose hope, it's over and
Mm,
nothing matters.
mhm.
So I need to remind myself, it's hope and hope for the future.
Well, thank you, Esteban, for building the hope, creating spaces for hope, and always having that beacon lit for your trio program.
Appreciate you, Martin.
Esteban, once again, it has been a true pleasure listening to you and your trio journey and talking about your path in education. Again, thank you so much for sharing your story with us.
Thank you, Juan. I really appreciate this space.
We have a tradition on the Let's Talk Trio podcast where we have the guests do a sign off. Do you care to do the honors?
Absolutely, Juan. And I'll leave you all with the following to our students, you have the most powerful voice in the room. Use it. To our trio staff and leaders, especially our first generation professionals, Many of us were raised to believe we shouldn't question leadership, but I'm here to remind you, you have a voice and you deserve a seat at the table. And of course, right one, never doubt your worth, keep fighting the good fight, and together, as I shared earlier, we can and we will find the light at the end of every dark tunnel. And finally, to all the abuelas, tíos, my own brothers, or everyone who's listening, I want to leave you with a gift, a quote from my dad. My dad said to me once, and I read it in Spanish, first and in English. Tienes que ser como un pájaro. Si alguien te tumba el nido, vuelve a volar otra vez y construye otro. You have to be like a bird. If someone knocks down your nest, fly back up again and build another one. Thank you, and as always, Trio works.
Are you a participant, alum, or staff of a Trio program? Do you want your program highlighted? You or your program could be featured in an upcoming episode of Let's Talk Trio. Get a hold of us by going to our Facebook page or Instagram and send us a direct message. Search for Let's Talk Trio. We want to get your story to the public.
You just heard from our guest, Dr. Estevan Parra-Guerrero. Thank you, Estevan, for being on the podcast and sharing your Trio journey. Remember, if you would like to be on the Let's Talk Trio podcast or know a staff, advocate, participant, or alumni, send us an email at letstalktrio@gmail.com. That email again is letstalktrio@gmail.com. A heartfelt thanks to our individual supporters, Angelica Villalpando, Dr. Jamie Motley, Dr. Ryan Barone, Dr. Jeff Deputy, Angelica Valdez, Rosario Riley, Felicia Rivera, Eric Lamaster, Jeff Calden, and Jaded Electronics. Thank you to our corporate sponsors, TrioJoblist.com, Nosotros Education Center, Longsdale Publishing, Student Access, and the Trio Store, powered by Proforma. Visit www.thetriostore.com, your source for Trio graduation stools. Again, thank you all so much for your continued support of this podcast. You too can be a sponsor of Let's Talk Trio podcast in one of three ways. Become a monthly patron on Patreon. Our base level starts at $1 a month. Become a corporate sponsor by placing an ad on the podcast. Contact us for details. Become a supporter with a one-time donation to the podcast business PayPal account. Our business handle is at Let's Talk Trio. I'd like to take a moment to thank our honorary members of Let's Talk Trio podcast, Roger Chambers, Tony Ho, Scott Kendall, and Susan Cramp. The Let's Talk Trio podcast team is John Russell, audio engineer, music producer, composer and performer, and post-production editor. Amelia Castañeda, script supervisor, marketing manager, social media manager, and producer. Juan Rivas, executive producer and host. Be sure to follow the Let's Talk Trio podcast on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. This episode was recorded Monday, October 27th, 2025. Thank you all so much for listening, and we will catch you on the next episode.